A soft unrest settles over the evening, the kind of quiet ache that comes when the mind has carried too much for too long, thoughts looping, worries echoing, old fears resurfacing like faint ripples across still water, and in this gentle heaviness, something inside whispers for relief, for quiet, for renewal. It begins as an emotional mirror, a tender recognition inside the heart that says, "You've been tired in deeper ways than the body can show, tired in the mind, in the thoughts that twist and tangle, in the memories that cling like ivy, in the pressures that whisper too loudly, in the expectations that never seem to loosen their grip." Tonight's story opens here, in this honest, weary place, where the soul longs not for escape, but for transformation, for a renewing of the inner life, for a shift from heaviness into light, from noise into stillness, from old patterns into something gentler, something God-shaped, something new. Take a slow breath, let it rise gently into the chest, warm, steady, softening the places that feel tight. Then let the exhale slip slowly from your lips, allowing your shoulders to loosen, your jaw to unclench, your thoughts to drift into a quieter rhythm. Again, inhale slowly, as though drawing cool night air into your soul. Exhale gently, letting the day fall away like dust settling onto a calm path. Now, let's settle into the soft CTA. If these stories bring you peace, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more nightly reflections. And share where you're listening from tonight. Your words and presence help keep this space warm and growing. Now, take another slow breath. Let's begin. The scene opens with a quiet hush of twilight settling over a hillside village, the sky dimming into shades of soft lavender and deep blue. The first stars beginning to glimmer above, a warm breeze carrying the faint scent of olive leaves, and down a narrow path of worn stones, walks a traveler who has known the weight of many thoughts. His footsteps are slow, not from exhaustion of the body, but from the quiet heaviness of the mind. Thoughts swirl, memories rise, old worries press gently at the edges of awareness, and the traveler feels them all, not loudly, not overwhelmingly, but like a familiar ache that has lingered too long. He pauses near a small lamp resting atop a stone. The flame flickers softly, casting a gentle golden glow over the path. He bends toward it, watching how the light dances in the cool air, and in that glow, a memory returns, a verse once whispered to him by a wise teacher on a night much like this one. A mind renewed, a life transformed, a heart softened by the love of God. The words drift now through the traveler's soul like the softest wind, not preached, not declared, simply remembered, and with each remembered phrase, something inside him loosens, lightens, softens. He breathes deeply, letting the night air wash over him like a gentle cleansing, letting the lamplight warm the tired corners of his thoughts, letting the promise of renewal settle quietly at the center of his being. For renewal does not come in a sudden burst. It arrives as a slow shift, a quiet surrender, a soft opening of the heart to something truer, calmer, holier. The traveler lifts the lamp, feeling its warmth against his palms, and the road ahead glows faintly in its light, not fully visible, but gently illuminated, a reminder that transformation begins with a single step into God's peace. The mind, once cluttered with noise, begins to clear. The heart, once tense with worry, begins to soften. The soul, once restless, begins to breathe. Another long inhale, slow, full, peaceful, another soft exhale, releasing what no longer needs to be carried. Tonight, the story begins with an invitation, not to strive, not to fight, but to rest into the gentle work God longs to do within the mind, the quiet renewing, the tender reshaping, the soft transformation that leads the soul toward peace. The lamplight glows warmly on the traveler's face, the hillside hums with quiet, and the journey toward renewal begins, slowly, tenderly, step by gentle step. The night settles deeper along the hillside path, a soft blanket of quiet folding over stones warmed by the day. The traveler walks slowly, the lamp held low, its glow brushing gently across the ground. But though the road is calm, the mind within him still carries weight, a quiet heaviness that lingers like mist in the folds of the heart. This is where the story awakens its next truth, the quiet weight of an overfilled mind, the noise that lingers even when the world is silent. Thoughts press gently at the edges of his awareness, old memories woven into the corners of his mind, unfinished questions drifting like soft shadows, 1,000 small impressions gathered from days and weeks and years, each one whispering, each one asking to be noticed, each one adding its own tiny gravity to the soul. The traveler feels it all, not as panic, not as fear, but as a subtle ache, familiar, persistent, quiet. The mind can become full in ways the body cannot show, full of expectations, full of comparisons, full of things the world insists must be carried, full of thoughts that tangle themselves into knots too tight to loosen alone. He pauses near an olive tree whose branches sway gently in the night breeze. Leaning against its cool trunk, he closes his eyes, and for a moment, the thoughts become clearer, not quieter yet, but visible, like ripples on water revealed by starlight. A memory drifts upward. He remembers sitting beside an elder in his youth. The elder had been mending a woven basket, running gentle fingers along frayed strands, smoothing them, untangling them slowly, one by one, until the basket could hold new things again. The elder had said, "A mind that holds too much begins to lose what matters. Release the strands. Let God weave new space inside you." Those words echo now inside the traveler's heart, each syllable settling like soft rain over dry soil, each phrase reminding him that the mind was never meant to hold the world alone. He breathes deeply, long, slow, steady, letting the night air expand the tight spaces inside his chest, letting the exhale drift outward like a soft sigh, releasing just a little of the weight he didn't realize he was gripping so tightly. The path ahead glows faintly in the lamplight, but the world beyond remains still and dark, a reminder of the difference between inner noise and outer quiet. The outside world can fall silent, yet the thoughts inside can keep swirling, whispering, pressing gently against the heart like waves against a calm shore. Another memory surfaces. A woman from a nearby village once described her mind as a crowded marketplace. Voices of doubt, voices of hurry, voices of fear, voices of expectation, all calling out at once, all demanding attention she could no longer give. But she had found renewal in sacred stillness, in letting God quiet the marketplace within, in letting Him whisper peace over the noise, in letting Him gently clear the cluttered paths inside her thoughts. Her story becomes a whisper in the traveler's heart now, a reminder that the mind does not renew itself through force, but through surrender, through breath, through letting the Spirit speak louder than the world. He steps forward again, walking slowly along the calm path, allowing his overfilled mind to loosen its grip, allowing the lamplight to soften the heaviness, allowing God to begin the sacred work of clearing space within. Take a long, gentle breath now. Let it slide into your chest like soft lamplight entering a dim room. Then exhale slowly, letting the mind unclench, letting the thoughts drift into softer shapes, letting the quiet of this night settle gently into your spirit. You do not need to fix every thought. You do not need to chase clarity. You do not need to tidy the whole mind tonight. You need only to breathe and let God begin the renewing, one quiet moment at a time, one gentle release at a time, one soft letting go at a time. The traveler walks on, the lamp glowing near his feet, the night holding him gently, and the mind, slowly, tenderly, beginning to make room for peace. The night grows thicker around the path, not heavy, not frightening, just deeper, a quiet that feels like soft velvet laid across the world, and in that deep quiet, the traveler becomes aware of something more intimate than the darkness outside, the shadows inside the mind. He walks slowly, lamp held low, the warm circle of light brushing over stones and dust, but even as the world grows peaceful around him, old thoughts begin to rise like silhouettes in the distance, memories, fears, patterns of thinking that have lived inside him for years, long before he had words for them. This is the tender truth of this part of the journey. When thoughts become heavy shadows, the mind begins to whisper in old familiar ways. The traveler feels them first as a subtle tightening behind the ribs, not panic, not alarm, just a quiet pressure, a reminder of the old pathways his mind knows too well, thoughts that loop, thoughts that question, thoughts that echo the world's expectations, thoughts that cling to old disappointments, thoughts that rise like dark shapes at the edge of the lamplight. He pauses, allowing the moment to settle, feeling the soft tremble of old worries coming to the surface. A memory drifts to him, a night many years ago when he sat beside a small fire while his teacher spoke gently about the mind. The teacher had traced shapes in the dirt with a thin stick, small spirals, repeated circles, patterns the lines made over and over again. The mind repeats what it has lived, the teacher said softly. Fears become familiar paths. Worries become old trails. But renewal begins when you see the pattern and invite God to reshape the lines. Those words return now with tender clarity, because the traveler can feel the spirals inside him, the thoughts that circle the same emotion, the memories that loop back around, the fears that return like shadows cast by the same old flame. He breathes deeply, trying not to judge the thoughts, trying not to wrestle with them, just witnessing them, like watching clouds drift across a quiet sky. The lamplight flickers softly as he lifts it a little higher, and in its expanding glow, the shadows around him look different, not threatening, not powerful, just shapes created by light that hasn't reached them yet. And he understands. Some thoughts feel like shadows not because they are true, but because they have not yet been touched by renewal, by scripture, by peace, by God's gentle presence in the deepest corners of the mind. Another memory rises. A woman from the village once said her mind felt like a room she never entered at night, full of boxes she never opened, filled with things she didn't want to face. But one evening, she brought a small lamp into the room, sat with the shadows, and discovered they were simply old stories waiting for light. That story becomes a soft whisper in the traveler's heart now, a reminder not to fear his own shadows, but to bring them into God's gentle glow. Not to fight them, not to hide them, but to let the Spirit renew them, reshape them, transform them from within. The traveler exhales slowly, a long, gentle breath that loosens the tightness behind the ribs. The shadows inside the mind begin to soften, not because they are gone, but because light has entered the space. Thoughts once sharp become quiet. Thoughts once heavy become lighter. Thoughts once tangled begin to unravel, like knots that loosen simply because someone is finally holding the strand with care. This part of the story turns softly toward your heart now. You, too, may carry thoughts that feel like shadows, old worries, old fears, old patterns that whisper when the world grows quiet. You're not wrong for feeling them. You are not weak for having them. You are not behind in your journey because shadows rise. Every mind has corners where old thoughts linger. Every heart has rooms that need gentle light. Every soul has spirals that God longs to unwind. Take a slow breath, let it fill your chest with warmth, then release it gently, letting the shadows soften at the edges. Imagine the lamplight at the traveler's feet spreading softly into your own mind, touching the places you've avoided, warming the memories you've tucked away, softening the thoughts that feel heavy, not to expose, not to overwhelm, but to renew. Slowly, tenderly, one soft breath at a time. The traveler steps forward again, not free from every shadow, but no longer afraid of them, carrying the quiet truth that what rises within can be transformed by God's gentle, renewing light. The night folds deeper around the quiet path, a soft darkness, warm rather than cold, a stillness that feels almost alive with listening, as if the world is holding its breath with the traveler's every step. The lamp glows low, its small flame swaying with the rhythm of his movement, and with each soft rise and fall of that glow, another truth begins to brush against the traveler's soul, the whisper of a different way, a way that does not match the old patterns of the world. He walks slowly, letting the cool night air slip across his skin, letting the thoughts loosen inside him, letting the earlier shadows settle back into something quieter, gentler, and in that calm, another presence begins to rise. Not loud, not forceful, just a soft stirring inside the heart, a quiet nudge, a whisper of change. It feels like the moment before dawn, that thin layer of time where the world is still dim, but the soul senses light approaching, not fully seen, but gently anticipated. The traveler lifts the lamp a little higher, its glow widens, touching the nearby stones with warm gold, and he feels something shift in his awareness, a gentle invitation to step away from the patterns that no longer serve him, to release the habits he inherited without question, to let go of thoughts shaped by noise instead of truth, to turn inward, toward something quieter, something holy. A memory rises from a distant season. He remembers a day spent listening to a wise teacher in the village square. The teacher spoke of how the world shapes thoughts quickly, subtly, with comparisons, with pressures, with expectations that cling like dust to the mind. But renewal, true renewal, comes softly, like wind over water, like light through branches, like a whisper that somehow feels louder than the world's shout. The teacher had leaned in and said, "There is another way, a quieter way, a God-formed way. Listen for it. It begins as a whisper." That whisper finds the traveler now. Not in words, but in feeling. A warmth beneath the ribs, a loosening of something old, a gentle inner turning, away from what the world insists, toward what God invites. Another thought appears like a faint outline, a memory of a woman who once spoke of how her life shifted when she began to notice God's tiny invitations. She said, "The world yells, but God begins his renewal in a whisper." She described it as a soft voice calling her back to peace, back to truth, back to who she was before fear wrote its lines into her mind. The traveler senses that same invitation now, a whisper asking him to release the heavy patterns, the anxious spirals, the loud comparisons, the thoughts shaped by the world's hurried rhythm, and instead, to step toward renewal, toward gentleness, toward a mind shaped not by pressure, but by peace. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting the inhale bring clarity, letting the exhale release old noise, letting the night wind carry away the things he no longer needs to hold. The path curves gently ahead, not demanding, not urgent, simply inviting, a soft turn into a new way of being. This part of the story now leans toward your own heart, quietly, tenderly. There are whispers inside you too, tiny nudges toward peace you may have ignored because the world was loud, gentle invitations toward rest you may have brushed aside, quiet signals that something in your mind is ready to change, ready to soften, ready to renew, not through force, not through striving, but through God's tender guidance. Take a slow breath. Let it move into the deepest part of your chest, then release it gently, letting the noise of the day drift away, letting the quiet invitation of God rise like a whisper in the stillness. You do not need to chase transformation. You do not need to pressure yourself to change. You only need to listen for the quiet nudge, the whisper of a different way, the soft voice of God inviting you toward a renewed mind. The traveler steps softly along the path, carrying the warm lamp, feeling the whisper of change within, knowing that renewal often begins not with clarity, but with a whisper in the dark, a whisper that says, you don't have to think the way you used to. There is another way. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts soften, let the whisper grow just enough to bring peace into the corners of your mind. The night deepens into a gentle blue hush, a soft coolness settling over the stones, a tender quiet lingering in the folds of the hillside, and the traveler feels something shifting in the air, not outside him, but within, the earliest breath of renewal, the first touch of God reshaping the mind. He walks slowly, the lamp glowing warm at his feet, its light brushing over the earth with a tenderness that seems to match the stirring inside his chest. A quiet loosening, a gentle softening, a release of tension he hadn't realized he carried so tightly. This new feeling isn't dramatic. It isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with certainty. It arrives like dawn's first glow, barely visible, but unmistakably real. The traveler pauses, letting the fresh breeze slip across his face, letting the lamp's warmth seep into his palms, letting this slow shift rise through him like water filling a vessel. A memory awakens, a moment from years long past when he sat beside a quiet stream at dusk. He had been overwhelmed that day, his thoughts tangled, his mind swirling, his heart afraid to name the worries pressing against it. But as he watched the water move slowly, as he listened to its gentle rhythm, he felt the first flicker of calm. Not the full peace he longed for, just the smallest sigh of stillness. A quiet moment where something inside whispered, "You can rest here, just for a breath." That tiny moment became the beginning of renewal. Not because it fixed everything, not because it made the path clear, but because it softened the space inside him enough for God to step in. Tonight, on the quiet hillside path, the traveler feels the same soft beginning, the tender birth of something new within the mind. It feels like a lightness behind the ribs, like the soft unclenching of thoughts, like a gentle shift from old heaviness into new ease. Not transformation yet. Not full renewal. But the first step toward it. The first slow breath of change. Another memory rises. A woman in a nearby village once told him that her transformation began with a single quiet moment. She said, "It didn't happen when I figured everything out. It happened when I finally breathed differently." She described the feeling as a small, warm drop of peace falling into her heart, barely noticeable at first, but slowly spreading, softening everything it touched. The traveler understands her now, because what he feels inside is similarly small, but sacred, tender, holy. The first breath of renewal is not a declaration, it's an opening, a loosening, a soft settling of truth into the corners of the mind. He looks up at the night sky, a few stars shimmering faintly above, and he feels as though the entire heavens are leaning gently toward him, as if encouraging this new softness, this slow beginning, this holy shift inside his thinking. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting the inhale stretch into every tired part of his chest, then exhaling the thoughts that once held him tight, one soft breath at a time. This moment now turns gently toward your own heart, your own tired places, your own quiet longing for renewal. Sometimes the renewing of the mind begins not with clarity, but with a softening, a loosening of the grip that old thoughts have had on you, a gentle release of patterns you've carried for years, a breath that feels slightly different, slightly freer, slightly more hopeful. If you feel even a tiny flicker of peace rising tonight, if your thoughts feel even a little lighter, if your breath feels a little deeper, that is renewal beginning within you. You are not asked to transform everything at once. You are not asked to fix every thought. You are invited only to notice the small shift, the soft beginning, the first gentle breath of change, the warm drop of peace that God is placing within your mind. Take a slow, gentle breath now. Let it slip into your chest like warm dawn light entering a quiet room. Then let the exhale carry away the knots of the day. Let your mind open just a little. Let your heart soften just a little. Let the Spirit breathe renewal into the tender spaces inside you. The traveler walks on, lamp warm at his feet, peace warm behind his ribs, carrying the first breath of transformation like a quiet gift from God, a beginning whispered in the dark, small, gentle, holy, and full of promise. The night settles into a deeper calm, a gentle, velvety quiet that seems to cradle the traveler's footsteps, and as he continues along the path, lantern glowing low, something inside him begins to open, slowly, softly, like soil warming under the first touch of morning light. For this is the moment when the story reveals one of its tenderest truths: the mind as a garden, waiting for God's renewing light to awaken what has been dormant. The traveler walks slowly, feeling the shift inside him, not a sudden transformation, but a gradual unfurling, a soft readiness, a quiet space within that feels like freshly turned earth, prepared to receive whatever God desires to plant there. He pauses beside a cluster of wildflowers that sway in the night breeze, their petals pale silver under the starlight, their stems bending gracefully, unbroken by the wind. The traveler kneels, touching the cool soil gently with his fingertips, and in that moment, a memory rises. He remembers working in a garden as a child, hands buried in the earth, feeling every root, every pebble, every grain of soil. The gardener beside him explained something he didn't understand then: the soil must rest before anything new can grow. It must be softened, warmed, opened. Tonight, he understands. Renewing the mind is not forceful. It is gentle, slow, sacred. A warming of the inner soil, a softening of the hardened places, a loosening of the tight, knotted thoughts, making room for new truth to take root. He looks at the wildflowers again, how they grow without striving, how they lean toward the light even when the night has settled around them, how they trust the morning before it arrives. This image settles into the traveler's heart like a quiet revelation. Transformation begins with trust. Not in the world, not in one's own strength, but in the God who brings light at the right time, in the God who tends the garden of the mind, who waters, warms, and breathes life into every weary, waiting place. A memory from the village surfaces, a woman who spent years overwhelmed by her thoughts. Day after day, she tried to change them on her own, tried to force peace, tried to reshape her mind with sheer effort. But nothing settled. Nothing shifted. Until one evening, sitting under an olive tree, she whispered, "Lord, soften me." That was the beginning. Not the moment her life became perfect, but the moment her inner soil began to open, to warm, to become receptive to God's quiet renewing. The traveler breathed slowly, deeply, letting the night air fill his lungs with its cool softness, feeling his heart open, feeling his thoughts loosen, feeling the soil of his mind become ready for whatever God is preparing. This part of the story now turns to the heart listening tonight. Your mind, too, is a garden. Not a battlefield, not a problem to solve, not a place to fear, but a sacred landscape God tends with tenderness. Some places may feel overgrown with old thoughts, some may feel dry from seasons of stress, some may feel tangled, and some may feel empty or dormant, waiting for new life. But God does not rush his renewal. He begins by softening, by warming, by gently preparing the soil, by whispering truth into the deep places where roots will one day form. Take a slow breath, let it rise like warm air drifting across a quiet garden, then exhale, letting the inner soil settle, letting your thoughts loosen, letting your heart open just a little more. Imagine your mind as the traveler's garden, warm, soft, receptive, the spirit hovering gently over it, ready to sow peace, ready to plant truth, ready to nurture new ways of thinking that grow slow, deep, and beautiful. The traveler rises from the ground, brushes his hands gently against the cool air, lifts the lamp again, and continues the journey with a heart beginning to open toward light, toward renewal, toward transformation. The night deepens into a warmer stillness, a soft, enveloping quiet that seems to understand the traveler's heart without asking anything of him. The path glows gently beneath the lantern's light, and with every slow step, something inside him begins to shift in a deeper, more vulnerable way. For this is the moment where the story turns tender and brave, the unlearning of patterns that no longer serve, the gentle release of thoughts shaped by old fears, the soft surrender of beliefs the world planted without care. The traveler walks slowly, the lantern swaying gently in his hand, casting warm circles of light that pulse softly with each breath, and as he watches the glow flicker across the ground, he becomes aware of something heavy inside him, not a single thought, not a memory, but a collection of patterns, habits of mind that have lived within him for so long they feel like truth. He pauses, not out of confusion, but out of recognition. There are thoughts that cling not because they are right, but because they are familiar. Thoughts that whisper in old, tired voices, "Be afraid, assume the worst, hold on to what hurt you, prepare for disappointment, expect less so pain will hurt less." Patterns formed by years of carrying burdens alone. Patterns shaped by voices that were loud but not loving. Patterns strengthened by moments of shame, fear, doubt, exhaustion. Patterns inherited from a world that rushes, pressures, compares, expects, demands. The traveler feels them rise within him like old shadows, not to shame him, not to frighten him, but to be noticed, acknowledged, and released. He steps off the path for a moment, moving toward a large stone warmed faintly by the lingering heat of the day. He rests the lantern on top, watches the gentle light bloom across the surface, and sits beside it, letting the night breathe around him. A memory comes, a moment from his youth when he watched a potter reshape clay on a spinning wheel. The clay had dried into a form the potter did not desire. It had hardened, stiffened, taken on a shape that wasn't beautiful and wasn't useful. So the potter wet his hands, softened the clay, and gently pressed it back into a form that could be reshaped. The traveler remembered asking, "Doesn't it feel like a loss to press it down again?" The potter smiled and said, "It's not loss. It's unlearning." The clay lets go of what no longer serves so it can become what it was always meant to be. Those words return now with deep clarity, echoing inside the traveler's heart like a soft bell in the night. Unlearning is not failure. Unlearning is sacred. Unlearning is the beginning of renewal. He breathes slowly, feeling the truth of it settle within him. Some thoughts he carried were never meant to stay. Some fears were never meant to shape him. Some beliefs were planted by pain, not by God. The Spirit begins to loosen those inner knots gently, not by force, not by sudden change, but by softening, like water soaking into dry clay, like warmth melting hardened wax, like light entering a long-closed room. Another memory rises. A woman in the village once told him she discovered freedom not by adding new thoughts, but by letting go of old ones. She whispered, "Renewal began the moment I realized I didn't have to think the way I always had." The traveler feels the same truth blooming inside him. He doesn't have to cling to the thoughts that once protected him. He doesn't have to carry the beliefs that once helped him survive. He doesn't have to obey the patterns shaped by fear, shame, or exhaustion. He can unlearn. He can let go. He can loosen the old roots to make space for new ones. This part of the story now shifts tenderly toward your heart. You, too, may carry patterns that once felt necessary, thoughts that once seemed protective, beliefs that once felt safe, but now weigh your spirit down. You are not wrong for having them. You are not weak for struggling to release them. You are simply human, and God is simply gentle. Take a slow breath, let it rise like warm water over stone, then exhale, letting something small loosen within you, a fear, a memory, an old belief that no longer reflects who you are becoming. You do not need to unlearn everything tonight. You only need to soften. To allow God's hands to reach the clay of your thoughts, to warm it, to tenderly reshape it, to help you release what no longer serves your soul. The traveler stands, lifts the lantern again, and as he steps back onto the path, he feels lighter. Not empty, just open. Ready for the next small, sacred shift in his journey toward renewal. The night drifts into an even deeper softness, a warm, quiet hush that feels almost like a blessing resting gently over the hillside. The traveler walks slowly, lantern swaying at his side, and with every step, the softened soil of his mind feels ready, open, willing to receive something new, something holy, something healing. For this is the tender heart of renewal, God's truth settling over the soul like gentle rain, soaking into places that once felt dry, nourishing what the world could never touch. The traveler pauses near a bend in the path where the ground widens into a small clearing. Tall grasses sway softly in the breeze, their tips shimmering silver under the moonlight. The air carries the faint scent of cedar and cool earth, and for a moment, the world feels perfectly still, perfectly quiet, perfectly ready. He lifts the lantern, holding it close, watching the warm glow reflect off the grains of sand at his feet. The light flickers, softens, spreads outward in gentle pulses, like a heartbeat of warmth against the cool night. And in that flickering glow, something sacred begins to stir inside him. It arrives not as a thought, not as a command, not as a loud declaration, but as scripture, soft, pure, gentle, falling through his mind like rain drifting through the leaves of an olive tree. Words he's heard before, words stored somewhere deep within, rise now with a tenderness that feels like God whispering from the quiet places. Be renewed, let truth wash over you, let my thoughts become your thoughts. The traveler feels the truth of it seep into him, slowly, deeply, like water soaking dry soil, awakening hidden roots, softening old hardness, bringing life where weariness once lived. A memory unfolds from years long past. He recalls watching a farmer walk the fields after the first rainfall of the season. The farmer knelt, pressed his fingers into the earth, and said with quiet gratitude, "The rain does what no tool can do. It reaches where my hands cannot." The traveler feels the same truth now. God's truth reaches where his own effort cannot. God's word softens what the mind alone cannot loosen. God's presence renews what strength alone cannot restore. Another memory rises, a woman from the village who found comfort in reciting scripture softly each night. She said the words didn't change her at once, but they fell over her mind like rain, soaking deeper with each whisper, renewing her one drop at a time. She described it as truth settling into cracks I didn't know existed, places only God could reach. The traveler feels that now, truth settling into quiet corners, comfort filling once dry spaces, peace washing lightly across the thoughts that had clung too tightly. He breathes deeply, letting the night air carry scripture deeper into him, letting its softness become part of his inner rhythm, letting the Spirit speak through the gentle stillness. Take a slow breath now, let it rise warmly through your chest, then exhale, letting your inner soil soften, letting God's truth fall like gentle rain over your weary thoughts. You don't need to force the renewal. You don't need to make the change happen. You only need to let the rain fall, let the truth settle, let God speak softly into the places that ache. Imagine this moment, gentle droplets falling over a quiet field, each one carrying warmth, each one carrying truth, each one nurturing something hidden and holy within. God's truth is falling over you this night, not to overwhelm, not to correct, not to demand, but to tend the garden of your mind, watering, softening, renewing, bringing life to the places that need his touch the most. The traveler lifts the lantern again, feels the warmth glow against his hands, and continues the journey with a mind slowly filling with light, truth falling softly, peace settling deeply, renewal beginning to bloom within. The night breathes with a deeper quiet now, a soft, steady calm that feels like the world has exhaled into stillness, and as the traveler moves gently along the path, lantern warm at his side, a new sensation begins to rise within him, subtle, gentle, beautiful. For this is the sacred moment where renewal begins to show its first signs, the early signs of inner transformation, the small shifts that whisper, something inside you is changing. Oi. He takes a slow breath, feels the air settle softly in his chest, and notices something remarkable. The thoughts that once felt tangled now lie a little looser. The memories that once pressed heavily feel lighter. The old patterns that once had strong voices now speak more softly, almost as though God's gentle rain has quieted them, softened them, and begun reshaping them from within. He pauses near a narrow stretch of the path where the hillside slopes gently upward. The moon hangs low, glowing like a soft silver lantern in the sky, and the grass bends tenderly in the breeze, as if bowing to the quiet work happening inside him. The traveler presses his hand lightly against his chest, and there, beneath his ribs, something feels different. Not loud, not dramatic, just clearer, calmer, more open. A memory from childhood surfaces. He recalls the first time he saw a seed sprouting. It happened days after he planted it, long after he'd forgotten the exact moment he placed it in the soil. He had not seen the moment the seed cracked, nor the instant the root reached down, nor the quiet push upward toward the light. But one morning, he saw a tiny green shoot breaking through the earth, delicate, trembling, but unmistakably new life. Transformation often hides its beginning, but it never hides its fruit. It reveals itself in small, sacred moments, moments where the heart feels unexpectedly lighter, where thoughts move more gently, where peace rises in places once filled with worry. The traveler feels one of those moments now. A thought comes, a thought that once would have sparked worry, fear, old patterns. But instead of tightening, his heart relaxes. Instead of spiraling, his mind softens. Instead of shrinking, he expands. And in that small, quiet shift, he realizes something is changing. God is renewing me. Another memory returns. A woman in the village once described her own renewal. She said, "It didn't feel like a sudden change. It felt like a thought exhaling, like my mind learning to breathe differently." The traveler understands now. Because that is exactly what he feels. His mind has begun to breathe differently. His thoughts no longer suffocate him. His fears no longer speak with the same authority. His heart no longer carries its weight alone. He takes another slow breath, and gratitude rises quietly within him, like a soft warmth glowing behind his ribs. This part of the story now turns gently toward your heart, toward the quiet shifts happening inside you tonight. Perhaps you've begun to notice a similar feeling, a softness in your thoughts, a breath that feels deeper, a worry that feels just a little less heavy, a corner of your mind that rests more easily than it used to. These are the signs of transformation, small, holy, quiet, gentle. Renewal rarely begins with fireworks. It begins with soft breaths, soft shifts, soft openings in the heart where God's peace begins to settle. Take a long, slow inhale. Let it fill your chest like warm light rising through you. Then exhale, letting tension melt from your muscles, letting something small and tired inside you relax. You don't need to force this change. You only need to notice it, receive it, and trust it. God is renewing you. God is softening you. God is reshaping the inner garden of your mind, quietly, gently, faithfully. The traveler walks forward again, lantern glowing warmly beside him, and with each step, the signs of transformation glow a little brighter within him, subtle, deep, beautiful, like dawn beginning to form at the edges of the night. The night folds into an even deeper peace, a hush so gentle it feels like a soft blanket drawn slowly over the world, and as the traveler moves along the quiet path, lantern glowing warm at his side, another shift begins to rise within him, quiet, steady, unmistakable. For this is the tender turning point, the moment where he begins to let go of the world's rushing voice and step into the quieter, slower rhythm of God. He walks carefully, feeling the earth soften under his feet, hearing only the faint whisper of wind through the tall grasses. The world around him is completely calm, and in that calm, he realizes how loud the world had been inside him. Its voice had shaped him for years. The pressure to hurry, the expectation to perform, the weight of comparison, the demand to know the future, the whisper that who he was, or what he carried, or how he felt, was not enough. The world speaks loudly, with rigid edges, with heavy tones, with rhythms too fast for a tender soul to keep. But tonight, on this quiet hillside, that voice begins to fade. Not disappear, but soften, slip into the distance, lose its grip on the inner world he once offered it without question. He stops walking, the lantern's gold light creates a warm circle around him, and he feels something sacred happening inside, the release of the world's grip, the loosening of the old pressures, the gentle unwinding of thoughts shaped by the world's noise. He closes his eyes, listening not to the world, but to the quiet. In that stillness, he hears something else. Something softer. Something far more trustworthy. Something that feels like truth breathed gently into the soul. A memory awakens, a moment from his youth when he sat by the shoreline at dawn. The waves moved slowly, the world still waking, and the quiet wind whispered something he could not fully explain. His mother had stood beside him and said, "When the world grows quiet, you can finally hear the voice that loves you." He understands now. Because the quieter his heart becomes, the clearer that loving voice sounds, not loud, not hurried, not demanding, but gentle, kind, familiar. Another memory rises. A man from the village once told him, "I didn't recognize God's voice until I silenced the voices that shouted." The traveler feels the truth of that settle into him like warm rain. The world shouts. God whispers. But the whisper is stronger. The whisper is deeper. The whisper is the one that heals. He takes a slow breath, letting the inhale stretch into every quiet part of the chest, then exhaling the echoes of a voice that once dictated his worth. The world's voice begins to melt away, like old smoke drifting into a night breeze, like dust settling on a quiet road, like weight falling gently from tired shoulders. And in the clearing left behind, peace forms. A slow, beautiful peace, like dawn spreading across the horizon in soft strokes of light. This part of the journey now turns softly toward your heart. You, too, have lived with the world's voice. The pressure, the rush, the noise, the expectations that cling to the mind, tightening it, tiring it, shaping thoughts that were never meant to define you. But tonight, something gentler is happening. You are beginning to step away from that noise. You are beginning to let it loosen. You are beginning to hear something quieter, something truer, something holy. Take a long, slow breath. Let it rise like warm wind through the soul, then release it gently, letting the world's rushing voice fade just a little more. You don't need to silence it all at once. You only need to turn your ear, just a little, toward the whisper, toward the truth, toward the gentle voice of God renewing your mind, calming your thoughts, softening your inner world with peace. The traveler opens his eyes, lifts the lantern once more, and walks deeper into the quiet, leaving the world's noise behind, stepping into the softer rhythm of divine renewal, his heart beating more slowly, his mind breathing more freely, his soul awakening to the whisper of God. The night deepens into a velvet stillness, a hush so complete it feels like a tender room has opened inside the darkness, a sanctuary carved not from stone or wood, but from silence, gentleness, and a calm that settles softly over the traveler's soul. He walks slowly, lantern glowing warm at his side, and as the quiet folds deeper around him, something begins to form within, not a sudden insight, not a dramatic revelation, but a sanctuary, a soft inner chamber where peace now gathers like warm light pooling in a still room. This is the gentle heart of the journey, the renewed mind becoming a quiet sanctuary, a safe inner space where God dwells softly and the soul can finally breathe. The traveler pauses near a cluster of tall reeds swaying on the hillside. The wind brushes through them like a soft whisper, and the moonlight paints each slender blade in silver, as though marking this exact moment as sacred. He feels the shift fully now. Inside his thoughts, inside his breath, inside the tender spaces of his spirit. Where there was once noise, now there is quiet. Where there was once pressure, now there is space. Where there was once fear, now there is warmth. He closes his eyes, his free hand resting lightly against his chest, feeling the soft, steady glow behind his ribs, the inner light that has been growing with each step, each breath, each whispered invitation toward renewal. A memory rises, one from a time when he visited a tiny prayer room in a friend's home. It was small, barely large enough for two people, with a stone floor and a narrow window facing the rising sun. But when he entered, even in silence, he felt peace immediately. Not because of the room itself, but because of what it represented. "This is where I let my thoughts rest," his friend had said. "This is where my mind remembers it belongs to God." Tonight, the traveler feels something similar awakening within himself. A quiet room inside the mind, a sanctuary not built with hands, but formed through gentle surrender, through softened thoughts, through truth settling like rain, through the loosening of old patterns that once shaped him. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting the night air soothe him further, letting the inner sanctuary grow warmer, letting peace move deeper into the spaces that once felt tight and tangled. The lantern flickers at his side, casting a gold glow across the path, and in the movement of that light, he sees something beautiful. The shadows no longer frighten him. They no longer speak loudly. They no longer define the path. Because now, the light within his mind has become stronger than the shadows around him. The sanctuary inside him holds more peace than the world can take away. Another memory surfaces. A woman in the village once told him about a season in her life when fear controlled her thoughts. She said her mind felt like a crowded hall, echoes bouncing from wall to wall, never quiet. But then she described how, slowly, tenderly, through prayer, through quiet evenings, through soft breaths offered to God, her mind became a sanctuary. A place where the noise could not follow. A place where she felt held. A place where she could rest without fear. "Peace didn't enter my mind," she told him. "Peace built a home there." The traveler understands her now. Because inside him, something similar has happened. Take a long, slow breath. Let it rise warmly through your chest, like light filling the windows of a quiet room. Then exhale, letting your thoughts settle, letting your inner world soften, letting your mind begin to feel like a sanctuary of its own. This part of the story leans tenderly toward your heart. You are not just learning new thoughts. You are building a gentle inner room where peace can live. You are forming a quiet sanctuary inside your mind, a place where God meets you, comforts you, renews you, and rests with you. Your mind is not a battlefield tonight. It is becoming a holy space, a safe room, a stillness shaped by the Spirit. You don't need to strive to maintain it. You only need to breathe. To let quiet gather. To allow peace to settle. To let God continue the soft work he has begun. The traveler opens his eyes, and the night around him feels like a reflection of what has grown inside, calm, spacious, gentle, holy. He lifts the lantern again, and steps forward into the quiet, carrying the sanctuary within him, a renewed mind glowing softly through the deep, peaceful night. The night settles into an even softer hush, a deep, velvety calm that feels like it has been waiting just for this moment, and as the traveler steps gently along the hillside path, lantern glowing like a warm heartbeat beside him, something beautiful begins to unfold within, quietly, slowly, tenderly. For this is the sacred turning point, the moment when God begins rewriting the inner script, softening old lines, replacing old stories, and planting truth where unkind thoughts once lived. The traveler walks with a newfound stillness, not because the road has changed, but because he has changed. Something in him has opened, something in him has softened, something in him has become ready for God's gentle rewriting. He pauses near a large stone warmed faintly by the night air, places the lantern atop it, and watches the warm glow expand outward in soft waves, like breath, like blessing, like truth itself stretching into the quiet. In that glow, old thoughts rise within him. Not to torment, not to accuse, but to be rewritten. Thoughts that once said, "You're alone," now soften, making space for a new truth, "You are held." Thoughts that once whispered, "You're not enough," now fall silent as God writes, "You are beloved." Thoughts that once cried, "You must protect yourself," now dissolve gently as a quieter voice whispers, "I will protect you." Thoughts that once insisted, "You must carry everything," are replaced with the soft truth, "You may rest. I carry you." He breathes deeply, letting each new truth settle into place like soft ink sinking into parchment. A memory returns from another season. A wise scribe once told him that old manuscripts were sometimes rewritten. Not thrown away, not destroyed, but gently washed, carefully smoothed, and written anew, not erasing the past, but transforming the page so it could carry something better. The scribe said, "The old words are not your identity. They are simply what once covered the surface. God writes in deeper ink." Those words echo now through the traveler's soul, soft as a lullaby, strong as truth, healing as warm rain falling on weary ground. He feels God's renewal reaching into the deepest corners of his mind, rewriting shame, rewriting fear, rewriting worry, rewriting the harsh inner voice that once spoke louder than grace. Another memory rises. A woman from the village described how God rewrote her life. She said, "I used to think my thoughts were carved in stone, but they were only written in dust. God rewrote them with his breath." The traveler understands. Because inside him, the dust is being lifted. The old lines are being softened. The new words, gentle and holy, are forming. Take a slow breath now. Let it rise deep into your chest. Let your shoulders soften, then exhale gently, letting something old slip away, creating space for a new truth to settle within. This part of the story leans softly toward your heart. You, too, may carry old scripts. Old stories written by pain, by fear, by mistakes, by moments that shaped you more deeply than anyone knew. But tonight, in this quiet moment, God is rewriting. Not erasing your past, but transforming your inner story. softening old lines, replacing old lies with gentle truth, writing peace where anxiety once lived, writing grace where self-doubt once lingered, writing love where fear once held the pen. You are not confined to the story you once believed about yourself. You are not bound to the old thoughts that once dictated your worth. Your mind is a living manuscript, and God is gently writing something new, something beautiful, something full of His tenderness and truth. The traveler lifts the lantern again, feeling the warmth of the new script forming inside him, feeling the gentle glow of truth where heaviness once lived. He steps forward, quiet, steady, renewed, carrying within him the beginnings of a mind rewritten by grace, a mind loved into transformation by the author who never rushes, never forces, never stops whispering truth into the deepest parts of the soul. The night settles into an even deeper stillness, a soft, sacred quiet that feels as though the world has drawn closer, as though the very air around the traveler is listening, holding, protecting, blessing the tender work happening inside him. He moves slowly along the path, lantern glowing warm at his side, and with each gentle step, the renewal taking root within him begins to reach deeper, beneath the surface thoughts, beneath the visible emotions, into the hidden places of the heart where true transformation begins. For this is the delicate, holy moment of the journey, when God begins to transform the deepest spaces of the mind, places untouched by words, places shaped by old wounds, places held tightly for years. The traveler pauses near a wide curve in the hillside where the land opens into a soft valley. Moonlight spills across the grass in silver ribbons. The air stirs gently, and the world feels suddenly vast, yet intimately near. He lowers the lantern, letting its glow spill outward like warm honey across the earth. The light feels different now, not just something he carries, but something that mirrors the glow rising within him. He closes his eyes, and in the quiet, old memories begin to surface. Not the sharp ones he once avoided, but the softer memories hidden beneath them. Memories that shaped the earliest beliefs about who he was, memories that settled deep within the soul before he knew how to name them. He sees himself as a child, sitting alone under a fig tree, wondering why fear came faster than comfort, why worry felt familiar, why silence sometimes felt heavy. He remembers the first time he believed a lie about himself, the first time he felt small in a painful way, the first time he held disappointment as though it were truth. And then, he feels something tender, holy, gentle, enter those old memories, a warmth, a presence, a quiet rewriting of the deepest layers of his identity. A voice once whispered fear. God whispers peace. A memory once breathed shame. God breathes belonging. A thought once carried loneliness. God fills it with closeness. Another scene rises. A wise elder once told him, transformation is not changing what you remember, it is changing how your soul holds it. He understands now. Because inside him, the memories have not vanished, but their weight has softened, their voice has changed, their power has lessened. God's renewal is reaching places therapy, thought, and effort could not reach alone. Deep places. Quiet places. The roots beneath the roots. He breathes slowly, deeply, letting the gentle warmth seep into the old corners inside him, corners where fear once slept, corners where sadness once lived, corners where old beliefs once carved their quiet lines. Another memory surfaces, a woman in the village describing her own inner healing. She had said, I didn't know God had reached the deepest places until I noticed I no longer reacted the same way. Her healing showed itself not in fireworks, but in softness, in gentler thoughts, in calmer responses, in peace where fear once lived. The traveler recognizes this now. The deeper spaces within him are softening, loosening, changing. This part of the story turns now toward your heart, toward the sacred places within you that only God can touch. There are deep spaces in your mind too, places shaped by old seasons, old wounds, old words, old fears. You may not think of them often. You may not even have names for them. But God knows them intimately. And tonight, in this quiet, He is reaching them gently. Not to tear anything apart, but to soothe, to soften, to heal, to transform. Transformation in the deepest parts is not dramatic. It is tender, subtle, slow, like warmth spreading through cold soil, like dawn creeping over the horizon, like water reaching the very bottom of a well. Take a long, slow breath. Let it rise into the deepest part of your chest. Then exhale, letting your inner world loosen, letting the Spirit touch places you've carried for years, letting God rewrite what only He can reach. You do not need to name the deep places. You only need to open your breath, soften your thoughts, and allow the warm presence of God to reach beneath the surface, to transform what you cannot see, to renew what you cannot access alone, to heal what has waited quietly for His gentle touch. The traveler opens his eyes, feeling lighter, softer, more whole than when the night began, carrying the quiet truth that God has begun a transformation deeper than words can describe, a renewal unfolding in the most hidden spaces of the soul. He lifts the lantern once more, and steps gently forward, carrying within him a heart being healed from the inside out. The night becomes even more tender, a deep, embracing quiet that feels like the very breath of God is resting over the hillside, calm, warm, gentle, steady. The traveler moves slowly along the path, lantern glowing beside him like a quiet promise, and he feels something within him shifting again. Not at the surface, not in his thoughts alone, but in the very shape of who he is becoming. For this is the sacred moment where the story reveals another beautiful truth. God's presence is not only a comfort, it is the sculptor of the mind, the gentle shaper of thoughts, the one who forms a renewed soul with hands patient and kind. The traveler steps into a small hollow in the hillside, a sheltered place where the air is still, the wind softened, the night held like a fragile flame cupped gently in God's palms. Here, the lantern's glow feels warmer, its light stretching further than before, as if it, too, recognizes the holiness of this moment. He pauses, setting the lantern on a smooth stone, watching its flame move in slow, graceful arcs, and in that soft movement, an old memory rises. Years ago, he spent an afternoon watching a sculptor at work. The sculptor moved slowly, hand steady, breath calm, touch impossibly gentle. Every motion was careful, precise, reverent, as though the artist understood the soul of the clay he shaped. The traveler remembered asking him, "How do you know what to carve away?" The sculptor smiled softly and said, "I don't carve to destroy. I carve to reveal. I shape until what has always been there becomes visible." Those words return now with quiet, holy force, settling into the traveler's heart like warm light. Because this tender reshaping of his thoughts, this soft renewing of his mind, this gentle transformation happening in the quiet of night, is not destruction. It is revelation. God is shaping him, revealing what has always been within, bringing forward the peace, the clarity, the truth he planted long ago. The traveler breathes deeply, letting that truth reach into his chest, letting his inner world soften under God's careful, tender hands. He imagines those divine hands now, not harsh, not forceful, but gentle, loving, steady, hands that do not rush. Hands that do not break. Hands that rest on the soul with the same warmth as the lantern's glow. He feels God shaping the edges of old beliefs, softening sharp thoughts, carving away the lies that once clung tightly, revealing the quiet beauty beneath the fear, revealing strength beneath the sorrow, revealing clarity beneath the confusion, revealing the beloved child beneath the burdens. Another memory surfaces. A woman from the village once told him that she resisted God's shaping for years. She feared it would bring pain. She feared it meant losing herself. But then one evening, as she prayed, she felt something so gentle, so kind, so deeply loving, that all her fear melted. She said, "God did not break me. He breathed life into the parts of me I had forgotten." The traveler feels that same truth tonight. God is not carving him into something foreign. God is revealing who he truly is, peaceful, held, renewed, whole. Take a long, slow breath now. Let it rise into the deepest part of your chest. Then exhale gently, feeling the tight places within you soften, feeling the edges of old thoughts loosen, feeling the tender hands of God shaping you with care, revealing the beauty he placed within you from the beginning. You are not being changed into a stranger. You are being shaped into your truest self, the one God always saw, the one he always loved, the one he is patiently bringing forward with every quiet moment of renewal. Your mind is not being broken. Your mind is being held gently between divine hands, shaped by love, formed into peace. The traveler lifts the lantern again, its glow reflecting the quiet transformation happening inside him. Soft, slow, holy, a reshaping by the sculptor who never harms, never rushes, never stops crafting beauty out of what once felt broken. He steps forward, carrying the tender truth that God is shaping his thoughts, renewing his mind, forming something holy within the deepest parts of his being, one gentle touch at a time. The night settles into its warmest quiet yet, a deep, embracing stillness that feels like the world has curled gently around the traveler, as though creation itself is holding a soft vigil over the transformation happening within him. His steps slow, his breath deepens, and the lantern by his side glows with a steady tenderness, not just lighting the path, but mirroring the gentle work of God inside him. For this is the sacred moment where the story reveals one of its deepest truths, the Spirit's work in the unseen places, the quiet transformation happening beyond awareness, the renewal unfolding even when the mind is still breathing, still trusting, still being reshaped from within. The traveler moves into a small meadow where the hillside opens wide, tall grasses swaying softly, the moon hanging low and quiet above, casting a silver peace across the earth. He pauses, heart settling into a slow rhythm, breath quiet and unforced, mind softer than it has been in a long time. In this deep quiet, he realizes something tender. Transformation is not something he is doing. It is something being done within him. Not through striving, not through effort, not through analysis or discipline, but through presence, through surrender, through allowing the spirit to move in spaces he cannot reach alone. He closes his eyes, and in that stillness, he feels the spirit at work, not loud, not dramatic, not forceful, but like a soft warmth spreading through the hidden rooms of his soul. A memory rises, a gentle one. He recalls the village healer tending broken pottery. The healer would mend cracks by filling them with golden resin. He worked slowly, meticulously, touching each fractured line with reverent fingers. When the traveler asked why he moved so gently, the healer replied, "Some things are restored best in silence." Those words return now, settling deep within the traveler's heart. Because that is exactly what the Spirit is doing tonight, restoring the deepest parts of him in silence, filling the cracks with light, pouring peace into the broken lines, sealing old wounds with the gold of tenderness and truth. He breathes slowly, letting that realization expand within him, letting the Spirit's quiet presence sink deeper, reaching the places he cannot name, touching the corners he has avoided, healing the hidden rooms where fear once slept. Another memory rises. A woman in the village once said, "I thought nothing was happening because I couldn't see it. But the Spirit was healing me in the places I didn't even know were hurting." The traveler understands. Because he feels that same healing now, quiet, internal, unseen, but unmistakably real. This part of the story turns softly toward your heart, toward the quiet, unseen work the Spirit is doing within you even now. You may not feel everything shifting. You may not see the full transformation. You may not recognize the deep places God is touching. But renewal is happening. Healing is unfolding. The Spirit is moving in the hidden spaces, softly, patiently, faithfully. Take a long, gentle breath. Let it rise like warm air into every corner of your chest. Then exhale slowly, letting the unseen work continue, letting the Spirit move freely, letting your inner world soften into His care. You do not need to understand the process. You do not need to feel every moment of change. You only need to allow His presence to rest within you, quietly shaping, quietly healing, quietly making all things new. The traveler opens his eyes, and the meadow looks different, not because the world has changed, but because his sight has been renewed, his mind softened, his heart touched by the tender work of God. He lifts the lantern again, its glow warming his hands, and steps forward into the night, carrying within him a transformation unfolding quietly, beautifully, unseen, but undeniably real. The night deepens into its gentlest form, a soft, warm, velvety stillness that settles over the earth like a tender embrace. Every sound grows distant, every movement slows, and the traveler feels a quiet peace beginning to gather around him, as though the very air is inviting him to breathe differently, to rest differently, to exist differently. For this is the tender descent, the moment where the renewed mind begins to rest, where peace becomes a rhythm instead of a visitor, where the soul finally learns to settle into the new, gentle way God is forming within. The traveler walks slowly, lantern warm beside him, its golden light flickering softly across the ground, casting long, delicate shadows that sway like tired thoughts preparing to sleep. He feels his shoulders relax, his breath deepen, his steps grow quieter, as though his entire body has begun to follow the new, slower rhythm of his spirit. The hillside curves gently ahead, opening into a small grassy hollow where the air is warm and perfectly still. The traveler steps into it, and immediately feels as though he has entered a secret room in the night, a sanctuary carved from silence, a resting place for the renewed mind. He lowers the lantern to the ground, letting its glow pool softly across the grass, and settles onto a smooth stone warmed faintly by the lingering heat of the day. The quiet wraps around him like a soft blanket, and he breathes, not out of discipline, not out of effort, but out of ease. He closes his eyes, and in the stillness, he senses something profound. The Spirit is no longer just working within him. The Spirit is now resting with him. A memory rises from long ago, a night he spent in the home of a gentle shepherd. The shepherd had invited him to sit by a low-burning fire, and as the flames softened, the shepherd whispered, "There is a time to walk, and a time to rest with the one who walked with you." That wisdom returns now, settling into the renewed spaces of his mind like warm oil soothing tired hands. He realizes he doesn't need to search tonight. He doesn't need to strive. He doesn't need to analyze or unlearn or reshape anything. The renewal has already begun. Now, he simply rests in it. He breathes again, a slow, deep, peaceful inhale, the breath expanding into places that once felt tight and unreachable. Then a long, soft exhale, like releasing the last threads of tension woven into the day. Another memory surfaces. A woman in the village once told him, "Peace didn't come when I finished changing. Peace came when I stopped resisting the change God was giving me." He understands her now. Because tonight, peace flows not from effort, but from surrender. From leaning softly into what God is forming, from settling into the new, quiet rhythm of a mind being renewed. This part of the story leans gently toward your heart, toward the tired places inside you, toward the thoughts that have begun to soften, toward the corners of your mind where peace has started to rise like warm light before dawn. You, too, are allowed to rest now. You are allowed to stop striving. You are allowed to release the pressure to understand everything. You are allowed to settle into the gentle work God has begun inside you. Take a long, unhurried breath. Let it fill your chest like warm evening air drifting into a quiet room. Then exhale, letting your body sink, letting your thoughts loosen, letting your heart rest in the safety of this moment. You are not behind. You are not unfinished. You are resting in the middle of transformation, held by God, guided by God, renewed by God, and invited to breathe in the soft, holy quiet of His presence. The traveler opens his eyes slowly. The lantern glows softly beside him. The night hums with gentle warmth, and his heart feels lighter than it has in years, not because the journey is over, but because he has learned how to rest inside it. He rises, lifting the lantern once more, and steps forward with a softness he didn't have before, a softness born from renewal, from trust, from learning to rest in the new rhythm of peace God has placed within him. The night has become a tender cradle of calm, a soft, enfolding silence that settles over the traveler like warm hands resting gently across his shoulders. The air is still, the lantern glows steady, and the renewed spaces of his mind begin to feel light, almost weightless, as though something heavy has finally been lifted from within. For this is the quiet revelation, the moment where the mind, once burdened and cluttered, begins to feel light again, free again, open again, alive again. The traveler steps softly along the path, lantern low, casting a warm glow across the gentle curve of earth, and he notices something subtle yet unmistakable. His thoughts no longer press against him. His fears no longer sit heavily on his chest. His mind no longer feels crowded, or tense, or tangled. Instead, there is space. There is breath. There is calm. He takes a slow inhale, and it moves through him easily. No resistance, no tightness behind the ribs, just a warm, steady rising of peace. He exhales, and the release feels softer than it ever has, like letting go of a weight he didn't realize he had been holding for years. The hillside opens into a small ridge where the earth spreads like a quiet tableland beneath the moon. The traveler steps onto it, and the breeze drifts gently around him, warm, slow, comforting. He lifts the lantern slightly higher, and the light reveals something beautiful within him, a mind that has room again. Room to breathe. Room to hope. Room to rest. Room to hear God without the static of old burdens. A memory surfaces, soft and warm. He recalls a day in spring when he helped a farmer clean out a cluttered storage room. The room had been crowded for years, boxes stacked high, old tools forgotten under layers of dust, shadows lingering in the corners. But as they slowly cleared the space, opening windows, letting fresh air drift through, the farmer paused, smiled, and said, "It feels lighter in here, even before we finish." The traveler understands now. Because his mind feels exactly like that room, cleared, aired out, filled with space where burdens once lived. Another memory rises from the village, a woman who once described her inner transformation by saying, "It wasn't that everything was suddenly perfect. It's that the heaviness inside me no longer controlled the way I thought." He feels that truth now. The heaviness inside him has loosened. The old patterns no longer hold the same authority. The whispers of fear sound distant. The voice of God sounds nearer. He pauses, lets the lantern rest at his side, and looks up at the moon. Its soft silver glow fills the sky with quiet assurance, a gentle reminder that light doesn't need to shout, it only needs to shine. Inside him, a similar glow has begun to rise, a lightness in thought, a softness in feeling, a renewed mind breathing in its new rhythm. Take a slow, deep breath. Let it fill your lungs with warm night air. Let it expand into every softened corner of your mind. Then exhale, letting anything heavy fall away like dust drifting from tired shoulders. You may not see every part of your renewal yet, but you can feel the lightness beginning. The unclenching. The peace forming in small places. The breath that rises easier than it used to. These are the signs of a transformed mind. Not perfection. Not certainty. But lightness. Softness. Space. The gentle proof that God is making you new from the inside out. The traveler breathes again, a breath filled with warmth, lightness, clarity. He feels the new room inside him, room for peace, room for truth, room for God. He lifts the lantern once more, its glow now matching the glow within him, steady, gentle, weightless. And with a soft, renewed heart, he continues down the night-wrapped path, light in thought, light in spirit, light in soul, carrying the quiet miracle of a mind renewed. The night has settled into its softest form yet, a warm, velvety quiet that feels like a gentle hand resting over the heart, every breath slower, every thought softer, every corner of the inner world wrapped in a peace that feels almost weightless. The traveler walks slowly, lantern glowing at his side like a small sun, and with each quiet step, he feels gratitude rising from a place deeper than words, a place shaped by God's gentle work, a place renewed by truth, a place softened by grace. For this is the tender moment where the story reveals its next deep truth, the gift of a transformed heart, a renewed mind, a soul that has been touched by God so gently that even its breath feels different. He reaches a small rise in the hillside, a place where the land lifts just enough to see the valleys below, now covered in soft waves of moonlit silver. He pauses, not because he is tired, but because his heart is full of quiet wonder, full of holy softness, full of a gratitude that feels as though it is glowing from within. He lowers the lantern onto a smooth patch of earth, watching its warm light spread outward, gently, like the steady pulse of a peaceful heart. He sits, feeling the cool ground beneath him, feeling the night air slip across his skin, feeling the renewed spaces inside him hum with quiet life. A memory rises, a moment from long ago when he visited an elderly woman known for her wisdom. She once said, "When God touches the mind, the heart follows. When God reshapes the heart, the whole being becomes light." Those words return now with deep, luminous clarity, because the traveler feels that truth blooming inside him. His heart feels lighter. His spirit feels steadier. His thoughts feel grounded in something holy and gentle. This transformation is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not sudden. It is a quiet unfurling, like petals opening in the first light of dawn, like warm air filling the lungs after a long winter, like a soft glow spreading through the chest where heaviness once lived. He places a hand gently over his heart and feels a warmth there, not physical, not imagined, but spiritual. A warmth that whispers, "You have been changed in ways your words cannot hold." Another memory surfaces, a man from the village who once talked about his own renewal. He said, "The greatest miracles are not the ones we see, they are the ones we feel in the quiet rooms of the soul." The traveler understands him now, because what he feels tonight is a miracle, gentle, unassuming, quiet, but unmistakably sacred. He breathes deeply, letting gratitude fill his lungs like warm light, letting it expand into the softened places within him, letting it flow through every part of his renewed mind. He exhales slowly, a soft, peaceful release that feels like surrender without effort, like rest without fear, like trust without struggle. And in that breath, something holy settles inside him, a sense of being aligned, realigned, pulled gently into harmony with the rhythm of God's heart. This part of the story turns tenderly toward your heart, toward the renewal happening in you tonight, toward the gratitude rising quietly inside you, toward the gentle shifts that may not have words yet, but can already be felt. You, too, may feel something different, a softness in your breath, a lightness in your thoughts, a warmth behind your ribs, a sense that God is nearer, gentler, more present within you than you realized. Take a slow breath, let it rise gently into your chest, then exhale, letting gratitude move through the softened spaces inside you. This gratitude is not forced. It is not dramatic. It is a quiet gift, a natural response of a mind and heart touched by God. Let it bloom. Let it grow. Let it spread like warm light through your inner world. The traveler opens his eyes, and the night feels clearer, warmer, more intimate. He lifts the lantern once more, feeling the same glow inside him, grateful, softened, transformed, renewed by the gentle hand of God. He steps forward, carrying the gift of a heart made new, breathing the soft, holy rhythm of a renewed mind, moving deeper into the peace that has been quietly forming within him all night. The night has become a soft cradle of silver and warmth, a stillness so deep it feels like the very earth is breathing with the traveler. Slow, steady, peaceful, as though creation itself has settled into a gentle lullaby. The lantern glows warmly at his side, casting a quiet halo over the path, and the renewed spaces within his mind now feel steady, anchored, as though peace has finally found a home there. For this is the tender approach to the story's end, the moment where a renewed mind begins to guide the way forward, where thoughts shaped by God form the gentle rhythm of life, where the heart moves slowly into rest. The traveler steps into a wide curve of the hillside, a place where the path smooths into soft earth, and the air grows warmer, thicker with quiet. He breathes, and for the first time in a long time, his breath feels completely unburdened, no tightness, no lingering weight, just gentle expansion, followed by a slow, peaceful release. He notices how different his inner world feels now, how space has formed where pressure once lived, how softness has taken the place of worry, how gentle truth has replaced rigid fear. This lightness is not temporary. This peace is not fragile. This renewal is not fleeting. It is the beginning of a new way of being, a new way of seeing, a new way of walking through the world. He pauses, lowering the lantern to the ground, letting its glow spill across the earth like warm honey. And in that glow, he feels a deeper truth settling into his bones. He is no longer walking with the mind he once carried. He is walking with a renewed mind, a softened heart, a peaceful spirit shaped by the gentle work of God. A memory floats to him, one from a time when he watched a carpenter smooth the surface of a newly carved table. The carpenter ran his hands over the wood again and again, feeling for rough spots, softening them with quiet strokes, until the surface felt warm and seamless beneath the palm. The traveler remembers asking, "How do you know when the wood is ready?" The carpenter smiled and said, "When my hand no longer meets resistance." Those words rise now with quiet clarity, because inside the traveler, the resistance is gone. His thoughts no longer push against him. His heart no longer strains to find peace. His spirit no longer flinches at old memories. The inner world has smoothed, softened, become gentle under God's healing touch. Another memory surfaces. A woman in the village once described her renewed mind by saying, "I began responding from love instead of fear, and that's when I knew something inside me had changed." He understands her now. Because he can feel that same shift, a foundation built on calm instead of anxiety, on truth instead of lies, on divine rhythm instead of the world's rush. He breathes deeply, letting this awareness settle, letting peace sink into every newly formed corner of his being. This part of the story turns gently toward your heart, toward the quiet changes you may already feel, the softened thoughts, the steadier breath, the new space forming inside your mind. You, too, are beginning to live from a renewed place, not all at once, but breath by breath, step by step, truth by truth, slowly becoming aligned with the peace God planted within you tonight. Take a long, slow breath. Let it fill your chest with warm air. Let it move through you like a gentle blessing. Then exhale, and allow your heart to settle more deeply into rest. You don't need to worry about tomorrow. You don't need to control every thought. You don't need to fear slipping backwards. God's renewal is not fragile. It is not temporary. It is not dependent on your strength. It is a steady work, a gentle work, a lasting work. The traveler lifts the lantern once more, but it feels different now, lighter, softer, as though the light it holds mirrors the light within him. He steps forward, toward the final stretch of the night, toward deeper rest, toward the closing peace that waits just ahead, his renewed mind guiding each slow, quiet step with grace. The night has reached its softest depth, a warm, velvety stillness that feels like the world itself has settled into a peaceful whisper. The traveler steps into the final curve of the hillside path, lantern glowing steadily beside him, and his renewed mind rests gently within him, calm, light, open, peaceful. For this is the closing blessing, the peaceful benediction spoken over a mind made new, the final descent into rest, the soft settling of a heart held tenderly by God. He moves slowly into an open glade where the earth spreads wide and smooth. The moon hangs low, casting a pale silver glow across the quiet land, and the breeze drifts like warm breath over his skin, gentle, unhurried, serene. He lowers the lantern one last time, placing it on a flat stone where its golden glow pools outward, lighting the grass in soft, warm tones, like a final whisper of light blessing the ground beneath him. He stands still, breathing in the warm night air, breathing out the last remnants of strain, feeling the full weight of peace settling over him like a blanket drawn lovingly across tired shoulders. His thoughts drift softly, not in confusion, not in worry, but in quiet reflection, remembering the heaviness he carried when the night began, remembering the shadows, the pressure, the tangled thoughts, the weary patterns, all softened now, all loosened, all rewritten, all renewed. He presses a hand gently against his chest, feeling the steady, peaceful glow within, a warmth shaped by God's touch, a mind softened by divine truth, a heart made tender by transformation. A memory rises, a gentle one. A teacher once told him, "The renewal of your mind is the renewal of your life. Think from peace, and you will live from peace." That truth now becomes a quiet foundation inside him. A steady rhythm. A new way of being. He looks out over the valley spread before him, a canvas of silver and shadow, soft and endless, like the peace he now carries. He breathes deeply, letting gratitude fill every corner of his renewed mind, and as he exhales, his whole being feels cradled in God's tender presence. Another memory comes, a woman in the village who described the end of her own renewal journey by saying, "I didn't close the night with effort, I closed it with surrender." The traveler understands her now. Because this moment, this breath, this peace, is surrender, not of control, not of identity, but of burden. The burden of thinking alone. The burden of carrying every thought. The burden of old patterns. The burden of fear. All released. All lifted. All transformed by the renewing touch of God. This final part of the story turns lovingly toward your heart, inviting you into the same soft surrender, the same peaceful benediction, the same quiet blessing over your renewed mind. Take a long, slow breath. Let it rise warmly through your chest. Let it fill the deepest places inside you. Then exhale, letting every last tension melt from your body, letting every lingering worry fall away like dust on a gentle wind. You are safe tonight. You are held tonight. Your mind is renewed. Your heart is softened. Your thoughts are anchored in peace. And God rests beside you, quietly guiding your breath, quietly shaping your dreams, quietly holding your spirit while you sleep. Let this truth settle deeply within you. You do not walk into tomorrow with the same mind you carried yesterday. You are transformed. You are renewed. You are softened by grace, strengthened by peace, and wrapped in the gentle presence of the one who loves you without end. The traveler lifts the lantern one last time, its glow warm and steady, and though he will continue his journey when morning comes, tonight he rests. He breathes. He surrenders to peace. He closes his eyes, letting the quiet night fold around him like a loving embrace, and whispers the final truth of his renewed heart: I am held. I am new. I am at peace. Let this peace settle over you now, soft as lamplight, warm as grace, deep as God's love, inviting your heart into the gentlest sleep. Good night, and rest deeply in the one who renews your mind and restores your soul.